Hi, my name is Jenny and I don't know how to start a video, so let's just get into it. I'd like to make this video because I've been looking at videos about the 6'2" profile in human design, and I haven't really found anything where someone else is sharing their personal story. Well, there have been a couple, but I feel like I have something to add because I've just completed the first third of the the sixth line, which is split into 3 different stages of life. One is from 0 to 30, and then the second one is 30 to 50, and then the last one is 50 to eternity. And I am now 34 years old. I'm about to be 35 this summer, and I feel like I have learned some things. And recently, following a very tumultuous breakup, I came to Bali, which I've been feeling the call to come to Bali for the last 4 years, and then very, very intensely the last 2 to 3 months. I came here about a month ago, and I've been using the time since I came here to just reset and recalibrate again. And that's why I want to talk a little bit about what I've been learning about human design and about my type and my profile. I am a manifesting generator, which there is no doubt about that, because I'm all about the shortcut, baby. And what I have been finding resonating with me from the things that I've learned in human design is just this extreme tendency towards efficiency and speed and extreme impatience and frustration. And I think what's been really helping for me since I started kind of going deeper into it and just bringing it into my awareness and sort of having like the knowledge about human design click into place. Like, for example, like one of the things that I've been doing since I started like really, I don't know if I can say like working with it, but I've been curious about it. So one of the main things is just about frustration. So when I am feeling frustrated, I just tell myself like, I am feeling frustrated, I am dissatisfied, like this is my, like, I'm not gonna say that it's the way that I will always be, but it's a common theme that's always gonna be there, right? So if I'm feeling frustration, it just means I'm not doing things in the right way. And I have experienced the correct strategy, right? So I have enough life experience now that I can kind of look back at things, and I know that when I have been following my strategy and when I have been just responding to things have always like worked in incredible ways, like crazy incredible ways. Like jobs have fallen into my lap, you know, like really amazing opportunities, just everything that's ever worked in my life has been freaking effortless. But then because of the social conditioning that we have in the world that we live in, we just, you know, like manifestors, they're only like what, like 7% or something like that of the population, and the rest of the population is gigantic, enormous containers. 70% generators are told to operate as manifestors. Like, it does not make any sense. So I think what I've been kind of integrating a lot is just the knowledge of I, as a manifesting generator / generator, I am not meant to initiate things. I'm not meant to even like invent things. I'm meant to just be out in the world and respond to things. And even like when it comes to knowledge, like my head center is totally open, which means that I'm fascinated with ideas. But then I think like a lot of the videos that I've made in the past have been about productivity and the gigantic frustration with being unable to be consistent. So I, in my type, I'm not able to stick with anything, and I'm not supposed to. And I think this is the biggest lesson, is to just learn to embrace that, and to learn to realize like, okay, cool, like I am interested in this thing. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because I am not an expert on human design. I don't even know enough to be making a video, but I feel like that is exactly what I as a 6-2 need to be doing. Like I need to just respond to the impulses that I'm having. So if I'm having an impulse of like, hey, I want to share this thing, you know, like I'm excited about it now, and I'm excited about it at the first sort of the beginning of the learning stage of it. And I think society tells us like, unless you're an expert, unless you have a PhD on the thing, and unless you've been doing it for 100 years, you're not allowed to speak. And I think that's really problematic, and that is what holds the 6-2 back. And one of the things that I've been reading in my profile of the 6-2 is that, and I've been massively feeling this in my life up until this point, is that I always feel like I'm not fully living my potential, because I'm always sort of holding back, and I'm stuck in like cycles of procrastination. And I think this is like the key point of like why the procrastination happens, is because of this like mental block of like, I'm not an expert, or like I haven't been doing this thing for long enough, or I'm not doing it thoroughly enough. Because the 6-2 manifesting generator profile is absolutely not supposed to be very thorough. It's just supposed to like get excited about something, deep dive into it, and then sort of just be a sponge, absorb everything, you know, like extract everything from it, and then get excited about it, share it, and then move on to the next thing, or maybe go deeper into that subject but from a different angle, whatever. But we're not meant to stick with one thing forever. And I think this is really it's really difficult to live that, because like if I reflect back now and I think of all the career advice that I've ever received, and this has been one of my biggest struggle points that I've had up until like 30, which is when I started doing the work that I do now, which I love, has been, I do life coaching now. It has been really difficult, because I've always been told like you need to pick one thing and stick with it for a long time, and you can't expect to just have shortcuts and have things fall in your lap, which is so funny, because that is exactly what happens when we're living according to our strategy. And if we listen to those people, which that is sort of the thing that's happened to me, like that's been the theme of my 20s, was just listening to the wrong people, and especially to the wrong men in my life, like men who have been very linear, who have been very goal-oriented, who have been very much like specialists in one field, who have not been all over the place. And I felt very, yeah, like very, not like inferior, but I felt like, oh yeah, they're right, you know, like I completely like bowed to their authority, and I was like, oh yeah, they're right, you know, like look at them, they're successful, they're making it happen, I should be like them. Up until the point when I was about 28, 29, when I just felt that was my first long relationship / marriage. It was about 8 years with this person who constantly made me feel like I was just failing, you know? And I felt very unsupported creatively. I felt like I could not really fully be myself, and I felt like, you know, I have to be like that person. I have to be like the people that were in his field. And I was really like living not my truth. And I cannot explain to you just how stupendously frustrating and miserable those years were. So our theme, when we're not living according to our authority and our truth, is unbelievable amounts of frustration. And then I hit a point actually when I was about 28, when I realized like, okay, hold on a second, like I'd rather suck than to be someone who I'm not. Like I'd rather be not smart enough, you know, like I'd rather be not creative enough. And like my particular field at the time was art, And this is so interesting. That's another thing that I've learned in the human design workshops as well, is that we're fascinated with that which we are not, right? So my head center is entirely open, which means that I don't operate in a conceptual way. And then another thing that the facilitator told us as well is that we're not supposed to script things, which is why also, like with the videos, like I don't script them. I can't get myself to script them, right? Like I can literally only just show up, turn on the camera and start talking and just hope that whatever comes out of my mouth is gonna be good. But I cannot script things, and it just does not feel right for me, right? And the only things that are gonna feel right for you are the type of things that pull you towards them, right? And if we're not waiting to respond to something, and that too can be really hard to understand, because you're like, oh, like if I'm not constantly doing something, like it sounds very contradictory, right? So you've got this like battery of energy every single day, and if you're not actually using up the energy, you feel shit. Like when you're procrastinating, or you're like lying in bed and you're scrolling, you feel so bad. You're like, and then the trick in there can be that you feel so bad, and then you're like, okay, I need to feel better in order to do the thing that I want to do. And then you end up going out and you end up doing things that you don't really want to do, like you go for a walk or whatever, and then like the entire day is wasted, and then at the end of the day you feel really shit because you haven't done anything with your energy. So another thing that I've been thinking about a lot after like absorbing this information has been like, okay, what does that mean for productivity? And I've been on YouTube searching, productivity for 6-2, because it's got so much to do with like hermit mode, and then especially the second phase of life, which I'm in now, and I've massively felt the shift. Like from the first stage to the second stage, I became so reclusive. I was like, what the hell? Like I am not that much of a reclusive person, but when I'm out with people, like I started kind of having like a much lower social battery. It's not really that, but it's like, unless the people are super aligned and I'm actually like really interested, I think like I became a lot more discerning about what resonates and what I feel drawn towards. And if I'm not drawn to it, I don't want to be around it in a way. I'm not getting fed by it. I feel like I'm completely like wasting time being there. And I do feel that I have this tendency, so that's also in the 6-2 profile, I have the tendency of endless procrastination and endless like, like my personality is almost like Marvin from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Is like, oh, like what's the point, like, oh, this is gonna take so much energy, like what's the point, unless I can ensure that the outcome, the end result is gonna be super satisfying, I'm not gonna bother with it. And that can kind of become like a default answer to almost everything. And that's one thing that I really want to change going forward. And I've been thinking about like kind of how can I design productivity for my profile. And what I'm realizing is like, I need to use up the energy every day, right? So then I technically kind of need to have like a bucket of different options to choose from, and just to ask myself like, what do I feel like working on today? Instead of whatever I've been doing before, like and it's just about keeping in motion. And that's one massive thing that I've learned, especially in the last, I don't know, 5 years, is just that action is everything. Like you do not wait around and wait for ideas. And the ideas, they always happen while you're in action, while you're in movement. And then another thing that I've learned too is that like when you're not expressing, when you're not actually talking and sharing ideas, like you get really stagnated and swampy, and then you're like in that swampy state of mind, and you think you're gonna get out of that swampy state of mind by thinking more. And that was another really interesting and like reassuring thing that I've learned about all of the human design types, which is that none of us are supposed to make decisions from our head. Like, we are all supposed to react with our bodies. Like, whether it's emotionally or your gut or whatever, it's all in the body. And I think like society really wants us to operate from our rationality, and it wants us to be able to explain everything, but technically most of us are supposed to do things on impulse, and especially my type, the 6-2 manifesting generator, is supposed to be impulsive. And in my last relationship, like, this was one of the biggest issues, because my ex was very much like a safety clinging type, and I'm a very impulsive, and like, I know that I need to be free, and I need to be able to kind of pursue and follow my instincts. Like, I need to be able to just be open and be responsive to my environment, and when something enters that I feel drawn to, I'm supposed to go and follow it, which means that commitment is really fucking challenging for me. Like, it's difficult for me to I don't like doing anything out of duty or obligation. It does not make sense to me. I am a free bird. I need to explore things that I feel naturally drawn towards, and I need to be open for opportunities and ideas and projects that I want to engage in, because that is the only thing for this type that gives satisfaction. Like, we're really meant to be doing the right type of work, and I feel like the first stage of my life has just been like torturous when it came to work, like doing all kinds of things and just constantly feeling like I'm in the wrong place, I'm not doing what I'm meant to be doing, and I need to figure out what I'm meant to be doing, and that was really, really difficult, and a lot of like periods of panic and challenge. So I'm beyond happy to finally have entered the second stage, and I'm most excited to reach 50, because I've always felt this, and even before I've learned about human design and about my type, I've always had this like number 50 in my mind, and I've always used to kind of say like, oh, I'm gonna live up to 126, because I had this like feeling that, you know, like when I get older, like that's gonna be my prime time. Like, I'm finally gonna be really clear about who I am, who I'm not. And that's another big thing that's started happening recently, is like, I think because of all these like big relationship failures, like I had 2 big relationships, I just started really like going inwards and reflecting and being like, whoa, like how did this even happen? Like, what did I not know that caused these wrong relationships? And especially like not being able to assess in the beginning stages, like never even crossed my mind to ask myself like what my needs are, like what is compatible with me, like who am I, like what type of person am I, what do I need? So like just starting to ask myself those questions, and like even in terms of like environment, like now is the first time in my life that I've finally gotten to a point where I'm able to create life and like design it in a way that works for me. And that means the right environment. It means like coming onto Bali, because like I know now about myself, and I've made lists, which I might make videos about that if anyone's interested. But I've made lists, I've made Notion templates to figure out like what is the right place for me to live? What type of requirements do I have for my environment? What do I need in a friend? What do I need in a relationship? Like, those are all things that I've never asked myself before. And naturally, you know, my mind was so all over the place when I was in my 20s. And part of that also has to do, there's another part in human design that it talks about your generational trauma, and I was like, oh my god, like nothing has ever blown my mind harder. It was so spot on. So basically it's like a separation wound in my case, and like the thing that I want the most would be to like a soulmate connection, to be with someone, you know, like that, where it's like we really see each other, you know, and like we both really go deep. And that's another thing too, like since I got into the human design thing, I've been looking at my exes and looking at their profiles and just seeing like so clearly, looking at our charts together, and it's like we are not compatible. Like what the hell was I doing? And now I see also that for 6-2 in relationships, the best combination is someone like yourself. And that was another big question that I've always had in my life, is like, who am I supposed to be with? Like, why am I always attracting people who are so sort of opposite from me, right? Like, I'm very adventurous and very like free-spirited, and I need to move, and I need to just follow my instincts and follow my impulses, and then I would attract the types that are just really steady and like not as adventurous and not as like just more normal. I don't know how else to explain it, like more traditional, more sort of like materialistic, more safety seeking. And I was like, okay, yeah, like maybe I'm attracted to my opposites, but now I'm thinking like that makes no sense. Like I need to have the guts to actually be with someone who's like me, right? And I think maybe when I was younger, when it was like really chaotic, like I could not even fathom something like that, because I was like, okay, if you put two chaoses, you know, two people who are lost and confused and they don't know what they're looking for, they don't know what they're doing, that's just too much. That's just too much chaos. But now that I'm in the second stage, I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. Like I could be with someone who is in the second stage, you know, someone who's gone through all of that, and now they're like in the reflecting and integrating period of their life, you know, and then you will have like the same period following that. Like that sounds good. And basically like someone who's a 6, like that's the other big lesson that I've learned, is that unless I need to be understood. And that's another kind of like pain factor in the 6-2 profile, is that you always feel like you're misunderstood by everyone. And you are misunderstood because like people who do not have a 6 in their profile can literally not understand you. Like they will not see how you look at the world. And I think that's also like a really positive thing too when it comes to work, because that is a gift, that is a talent that, you know, if you have that, you have that bird's eye view. Like you can see patterns, you can really be like a very good advice giver, you know, or like whether it's a coach or a therapist or whatever it is, you can be that for another person because you can see really clearly. But not everyone has that. And then I was thinking, it's so funny, you know, like how people like to make fun of life coaches because they're like, oh, well, everyone has a life, everyone knows what to do, like they're just going to tell you what to do. But there is like clearly, if like not, if a small portion of the population has that specific skill set of like being able to see things with more clarity and more perspective and more bigger picture vision, then the other part of the population can benefit from that. So I think like it's really interesting. Like the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, oh wow, like this is useful stuff, and I'm very, very excited to integrate it and to really implement it into productivity in a way that things just flow more, you know, and like I'm just doing things that I feel called to do and not just pushing, because like I've done that for most of my life, and it's a trap that I constantly fall back into that, like, oh, you need to be consistent, you know, like you need to schedule things, and you need to, you know, like create a plan and stick to it. Like that does not work. And I think like the real challenge of being this type is that you feel like, but if I don't do something, nothing's gonna happen, right? And one of the things that I started practicing the last couple of years is just that when I feel overwhelmed, like in the past I used to just like think my way through it, and now what I do is like I'll literally just like lie down on the floor or like lie down and just do nothing, like no phone, no nothing, and just lie there and rest and just let my mind empty out until I feel like moving again. Which sounds silly, but I feel like it's really effective actually. So Anyway, that's all for today. Battery's out, thankfully, otherwise I could go on forever. And I will see you again soon. Bye.